Today's broadcast of the Voice of St. Anthony Parish from Allston, Massachusetts is brought to you in memory of David Clemente. Welcome to the Voice of St. Anthony Parish from Allston, Massachusetts, right here on WROL 950 AM 100.3 FM. And you can also hear us at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com, where you can check out our website, check out the archives of the show. You can check out our Substack newsletter, and you can subscribe to that. You can listen, as I said, you can listen on various platforms to our podcast. Remember, we're on Amazon Music, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Google, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on various podcasts, and let people know where to find us, and obviously here at WRL 950 AM Monday through Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at 3:16 p.m. it drops at CatholicAudiomedia.com. And you can also follow us on Twitter. We are at Allston Saint. That's our parish, Allston Saint. Well, I was going to originally, as I mentioned on Tuesday, have an interview with Bishop Dorfler, but who wasn't feeling well. So I wanted to discuss one of the principles in his letter. And he wrote a letter back in July, and it really became, people became aware of it in probably around September, October. And it was a letter giving instructions basically to priests to those in the, how to minister to those in the same-sex attracted community. Well, one of the things we want to look at in light of that, because I had said earlier that many people were upset over this because the letter was directed right to this one group. But I had said if you look at the instructions of the letter, it actually applies right across the board. So, for example, in a relationship in the church, the only accepted sexual relationship is within a sacramental marriage between a man and a woman that is open to life. That is the only one that, the only sexual relationship that is accepted in the church. So anyone who's living any kind of a relationship outside of that, a sexual relationship outside of that, those instructions that he gives of whether or not you can be a godparent, whether or not you can receive communion, et cetera, all apply. So, in fact, one of the criticisms was that this is only focused on this community, and that was a legitimate criticism. But when I talked to his representatives, one of the things they said is he wanted to focus on the pastoral accompaniment, because his whole focus was the first step is encountering Christ. Now, that is Christianity. The first step is encountering Christ. That is what Christianity is all about. That is what our Catholicism is all about. And I think, as I said earlier, that was lost for decades, or maybe even a century or more. Because if you listen to a lot of people who talk about when the churches were full and everything else, what you also hear is people who knew a lot of rules. But the rules don't do you any good if you don't have an encounter with Christ. Now, I'm not saying people back then didn't, but I remember my father used to always tell me, we never learned about this love of God. We learned that God was to be feared. And they would often tell you in the Boston area, I don't know if this applies across the country, but they would often tell you in the Boston area that there was a lot of sternness of the priests. The priests were very stern, and there was always talk about hell. As a matter of fact, there was an article, about probably 15, 20 years ago, maybe even longer, that said the reason why horror movies are becoming so popular and the way they are is because they start preaching about hell in churches, because people like to hear about hell. It's a fascinating little idea. But one of the things he said that's so important in the letter is everything begins with an encounter with Christ. And we don't hear that as much. I've been very, very critical of a very fine archbishop. He's retired now. But he wrote in a letter in a criticism of another priest, and he said, people have to understand you have to seek virtue. Now, he was writing this within a Catholic context, and that's important to understand. But Catholic teaching is that you cannot live Catholic teaching if you are not a person of prayer. So you can tell someone that they have to seek virtue, but if you aren't also explaining that they have to be people of prayer, then what'll happen is that they can seek virtue and try to seek virtue without prayer. Well, that's paganism. A pagan does that. So we have to have that encounter with Christ. And one of the things I wrote a while ago, maybe I should put a connection to it, I wrote a while ago, is how St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, quoting St. Augustine, explained why Jesus never wrote anything down. And he didn't write anything down because his focus, he didn't want his words to be written in stone. Because his words would have been written in stone for that time, and now 2,000 years later, people would say this is what his words mean without rediscovering him, and we could only rediscover him through an encounter with Christ. So that's why we don't have it written down. And it's based on the last line in the Gospel of John, where it says that Jesus did and said so many things that there isn't enough, I forget the exact phrasing, but there wouldn't be enough information, enough books in the world to hold all that information. And St. Augustine said the reason why is not that the world isn't big enough, is that the people's minds are not big enough, that we're always expanding, and even today it's not big enough. We have to rediscover Christ always and have that encounter with Christ. We're going to talk more on the other side of the break. We'll see you there. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. Do you know that you can put together an adoration chapel of your own in your own house? With concerns surrounding the coronavirus and social distancing, many miss the opportunity to pray before the Blessed Sacrament. However, with a little ingenuity, it is quite easy, and you are not doing anything irreverent or illicit. Simply search Eucharistic Adoration Live on YouTube, and several live channels in different parts of the world will pop up. Now you can engage in Eucharistic adoration in your own home if it is not available in your local parish church. Eucharistic Adoration Live on YouTube. St. Anthony Parish, Allston, Massachusetts. And of course, I'm letting people know about that idea of Eucharistic Adoration Live, because this is really a time for us to be people of prayer. As I'm talking about actually in the other side of the break and continuing here, we have to be people of prayer. We really have to let this time of this war in Eastern Europe to bring us closer to God in prayer, so that we can witness to the need for people to understand that God is real. Because when we don't do that, then we walk down a path of stupidity, which is what you're seeing anytime war breaks out anywhere in the world. And this isn't the only war going on. There are various other wars going on in the world. Any time you see war going on, that's stupidity is broken out. So what we are looking at is this a powerful message, how we need this encounter with Christ. Now, I want you to think about something. Somewhere around the early 1960s, Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, now always remember he was a Baptist minister. He had a meeting, remember this is 1964, he had a meeting with a bunch of African-American youth. And he was, talking, and this was on a CBS report or some network report. I don't know if it was CBS. And there was one of the youth, he was probably a teenager or something, and he said to him, he asked him the question, what he does in the situation that he finds himself looking at men the way his friends look at women. So we know what he was referring to there. There probably wasn't much of a word in public for that. And here he is asking him what to do. And I forget what Martin Luther King's answer was. But the reason why that's important is because you know that if that happened in that circumstance, it also happened in the time of Jesus. You know that someone asked the same question and probably over and over again, and he gave the answer. But the answer is not written down because Jesus didn't write down his answers, because our answers have to be discovered anew and at a deeper level every time. So what the bishop brought out is the importance for pastoral accompaniment, and that begins with those who are same-sex attracted to bring that message to the Lord, bring it in prayer. That is so important, and this is why you have to be careful of just focusing on the rules. Remember, you can live the rules of Catholicism as an atheist. We have to have this encounter with Christ, because if we don't have this encounter with Christ, you can live as a pagan and follow all the rules of Catholicism, even going to church on Sunday, by the way. There are churches for atheists, in case you didn't know that, where atheists can go to church on Sunday. They don't necessarily listen to just the scriptures, but they go to church on Sunday. And there are churches for atheists. So do understand that this is why I wanted to have the interview with the bishop, but he again wasn't feeling well. And this is why I thought it was so important, because it's important to get that message out. Regardless of who we're dealing with, regardless of what issues they are dealing with, all of them, they have to come before the Lord and say, Lord, I'm struggling with this, or Lord, I've got this, or Lord, this is the situation, regardless of what it is, and bring it to the Lord. And that includes everything that we deal with on a regular basis. Lord, I'm feeling very depressed today. Lord, I'm feeling very irritable today. Lord, I deal with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I'm having a struggle today. Bring it all to the Lord. Everything. Lord, I thank you for having a great day today. Lord, I'm thank you for this happened today. And, as St. Paul says, dedicate yourselves to gratitude. So this is an important part of what it means to be a Christian. And so often you see people who will tell you rules and nothing but rules. And this is what it means. Don't. You need to bring all your issues to prayer. You have to. And that's why I thought the bishop's letter was so important. I know the media picked it up, but the media is not going to understand that. They're never going to understand that part, ever. The important part is, regardless of what you have in your life, always bring it to prayer. Always start there, because that's what it really means to be a Catholic and all forms of Christian. Have yourself a blessed day. We'll see you tomorrow with Alfred Mira. Today's broadcast of The Voice of St. Anthony Parish was brought to you in memory of David Clementi. In Cristo vivimos.